Back now with more First Read. Ohio, of course, is the ultimate bellwether in presidential elections. It's home to a marquee 2014 governor's race as well. And it's where NBC and Wall Street Journal pollster Peter Hart and I went last week to take the pulse of a group of swing voters in a forum by the University of Pennsylvania's Annenberg School. It was clear from our focus group of 11 Cincinnati area voters that Washington right now is about as popular as A-Rod at a convention of Boston Red Sox fans. The participants issued a scathing indictment of Washington and everyone in it.
Give me a word or a phrase to describe how you feel things are going in America today.
Fair.
Poor.
Confusion.
Struggling. Timid.
Disorganized.
Dead.
Division.
Contentious. Disappointing.
Broken.
They're indicting Washington. They're indicting the president and they're indicting Congress. It is a sense that the system doesn't work. As the system doesn't work, they don't have an answer, but they know what they hate.
You could not walk away from this focus group without realizing the president is losing the faith of these swing voters, many of whom he won to his side both in 2008 and in 2012. 8 of the 11 participants, these were independents or independent leaners, voted for the president in 2012. Not one of them described themselves as proud or satisfied with him. Instead, they used words like mixed or disappointed.
I was really excited going to his first term. His first term was certainly a disappointment.
He said a lot of things, but he's really just turned out to be just another politician, another president.
I think, like all politicians, you talk the talk, but it's hard to walk the walk.
He's a big disappointment.
Explain to me, big disappointment.
He's not focused on creating more jobs, just fixing the economy, getting things going again, making people more prosperous, It's like the economy's just sitting still.
There was no sense of strength that came out of this. It was a sense of somebody that was being buffeted around in the wind, a person who was facing all those difficulties, and instead of marshaling himself for the times were controlling him.
Again, realize this criticism is coming from former supporters of the president. This wasn't a piling on from adversaries. When asked to describe the president, participants used words like inexperienced, powerless, cautious, timid, and overwhelmed. Congress, of course, sustained even more anger. The voters called the government shutdown selfish, pleaded for parties to work together, and they were very cynical about what one participant called all those steak dinners.
How would they be different if they lived in your shoes for 3 months?
I would hope they would be more aware of the people they're working for.
I would hope they care more about the people they represent. That's what upset me so much about the shutdown before.
They would learn to be a little more open-minded and not so closed in on one train of thought.
They will learn how to budget.
Though the Ohio voters had no trouble diagnosing the problem in Washington, they were less clear about how to fix it. They said they felt helpless when it came to punishing Washington or getting lawmakers to do their jobs. Some said congressional term limits could help, but other ideas to radically change the structure of Washington all seemed unfeasible to them.
I got a new group. It's called the Broom Coalition, okay? And they only have one thing in common. Get rid of everybody. How many people will vote for the Broom Coalition candidate? That means if you love your congressperson, that person's going out.
I don't know what kind of experience they have.
No. So no.
And because?
I think you're losing some experience.
Just 2 said they would support those Broom Coalition candidates, the only real silver lining in the 2-hour session. Though participants were sour about Washington gridlock, the job market, and health care, they actually felt more optimistic about their own lives. All of them felt hopeful about the economy, and they all thought it was improving. Just 2 of the 11 called the president's current problems a fork in the road. The rest said his declining popularity is a bump that he may be able to overcome. And when it comes to the 2016 presidential race, by the way, we asked them to describe political figures with a single word. Well, here's what they came up with. Their enthusiasm for Hillary Clinton was striking. Most members of the group assigned her the strong leadership qualities that seem to be eluding the president right now.
Hillary Clinton.
Distrustful.
Energetic.
Strong.
Vivacious.
And trusting.
First women president.
Powerful.
Yeah, I would say powerful.
Somewhat surprisingly, one politician who hasn't made much of an impact was New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
Chris Christie.
Ignorant. Personality.
Indifferent.
Self-serving.
Pass.
Godfather.
No opinion.
Uncaring.
Cares for his constituents.
But perhaps no political figure got more widespread praise than First Lady Michelle Obama.
You can have one of these people as your next door neighbor. Who you want as your next door neighbor? Call it out.
I want Michelle Obama.
How many want Michelle Obama as their next door neighbor?
Michelle.
I got 4 women, all with the hands up.
Hillary.
How many say I want Hillary? Hey, you can't have both.
By the way, none of them wanted President Obama as their neighbor, but they did want Michelle Obama. All right, joining me now, Republican ad maker Brad Todd, USA Today's Washington Bureau Chief Susan Page, Democratic pollster Fred Yang, and the Washington Post Chief Correspondent Dan Balls. Dan, I want to start with you. While it's not surprising, the purpose of a focus group is to try to get some context to the poor poll numbers and the poor reflection that clearly the public has for Washington there. But what was striking to me, Dan, was the lack of not knowing what to do next, not knowing how to punish Washington.
Well, I think that frustration has been out there, actually, Chuck, for several cycles. I mean, I think that once we got past '08, which was obviously not just a historic election, but one in which a lot of people felt good about and felt that maybe the country could turn a corner, what we've seen since then is polarization is worse than ever, and the anger at Washington is deeper than ever. And obviously, I think part of this is related to the lack of real recovery for so many people with the economy. So there are a whole series of elements, and people don't know what to do about it. And when it comes time for election, they tend to go back to their two sides, the Republican side or the Democratic side, and that outweighs so much else, even though this anger toward Washington persists.
Brad and Fred, you guys are probably big consumers of focus groups. Brad, anything in that focus group surprise you?
Not at all.
Yeah.
We see that everywhere in the country, whether it's flyover country or on the coast. A lot more so in the middle of the country, of course. I predict the voters will figure out how to take out their anger on Washington next year. When they walk in the ballot booth, it hurts Republicans a lot less than it hurts the Democrats when voters are angry, because voters know Republicans hate government, and when government's dysfunctional, they punish the people who like government, and that's Democrats. They generally elect Republicans to stop government programs and Democrats to start them. So I think the current climate actually favors us quite a bit.
Fred, what do you say to that?
Well, I would argue that the government shutdown, there are other parts of the focus group in which the voters there were, both sides were very angry at sort of what
I was surprised at how much legs the government shutdown still had. I wasn't surprised at health care.
Right. You can be pro or anti-government, but just sort of throw up your hands and walk away from the problem.
That left the mark.
Right.
Yeah. No, that was pretty clear there. So, but Susan, this sort of larger thing going back to the lack of the ability to punish. And the other thing was, I felt like they figured out it's a Washington problem that they don't think has become a problem in their area.
Well, and you see some optimism as the economy gets better. I think the thing that's interesting here is, can President Obama recover?
Right.
With this, with the disappointment, even from people who supported him, if the economy gets better, if the healthcare website starts to work better, is there a path back to him? Because I don't think there's an historic precedent for President falling as far as he has in approval and managing to rebound. I mean, he's really tracking with George W. Bush, who never did recover.
Brad, really quick.
Well, you noticed last week unemployment hit a 5-year low during his term, and his approval ratings at a 5-year low as well. So I think he's become divorced from where the economy is, and he's hardwired into the.
Well, and that's the question, is whether it bounces back. Hey, Dan, I want to before I go to you next, I want to play a little bit of Peter asked them to use a song to describe where President Obama is right now, and they were actually quite good at this. I thought I was a little doubtful. Take a listen.
Michael Jackson Scream.
Don Henley's The End of the Innocents.
Okay. Yep.
I'm thinking it's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a dog.
Rain of Fire, I believe it's by Johnny Cash.
I said Dazed and Confused. It just seems like that's what they are lately.
I was going to say Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me by Elton John, because everybody's blaming him for everything.
Okay.
Well, Dan, that gets at what Susan and Brad were both just talking about, which is this idea, can he recover? Now, among Obama voters, to me, it wasn't surprising that these folks who were disappointed in him still hold out hope that he can recover from this, view it as a bump in the road. The question is, what gets him out of it? Is it simply health care working? Is it the improving economy? Or is he completely divorced from the economy, his political approval ratings?
Well, it's a really important question, Chuck, because as Susan says, it is very difficult once a president takes this kind of a tumble to really bounce back. Now, if the economy does improve, that will help. There's no question about that. But one of the things we've seen in public opinion over the last 60 days, really, is that this kind of base that he had beneath him, which is that people thought he was an honest president or a strong leader, some of that has eroded significantly, and I think that that's the question as to whether, even if the health care law seems to be working pretty well, and even if the economy comes back, whether this sense of him as a weak president, as somebody who is too detached, really has taken hold to the extent that it does divorce him from some of the other bigger forces that are changing the economy.
So, Fred, when you look at 2014, I mean, I know that it's easy to say, well, it's going to be a bad year for the Democrats because of health care, because of the president's job rating. And yet, as I started the show, you do have this recovering economy. I assume that benefits all incumbent governors first, that that's the first people that get advantage of this. Does it help congressional Democrats?
Yes, I do. And I think in terms of the president.
Do you think that, or do you just hope that?
I hope, and then think,
okay.
Or vice versa. And I think with the president, look, it's all about the fundamentals. Will he perform? Will the American public think he's done the job on the economy, on health care, and foreign policy? You know, he needs that trifecta. Looks like we're getting it with the economy. Health care's turning around. The Iran deal. You know, and then, look, I think the other thing in terms of who 2014 benefits, I'm not sure yet. Because when you listen to that focus group and other focus groups, Brad, you and I have been parts of, the sense of we've tried one direction, we've tried another direction, where do we go from here?
See, that's what was interesting, Susan, you know, somebody said, man, well, maybe we need an independent. But then when you played that scenario out for everybody in that focus group, they eventually came around to, I got to pick one party or the other.
Because what's been the experience with independents, with Ross Perot, who raised people's hopes, and with the Tea Party, I mean, that was an expression of frustration by a lot of Americans. And I think even some people who initially supported the Tea Party now say this is not what we thought we were buying. So maybe that's the worst thing about this focus group, is that people don't see a way out and feel powerless to affect their own government.
So does this mean 2014 is those people don't vote?
Well, I think
that was my question to them. They all said they were going to vote.
I think most of them will vote. I think frustration leads to high turnout. But keep in mind, the 2014 elections are in red states. 9 of the 11 Senate seats.
The federal elections.
Yeah. So it's a little bit even more severe.
All right. Dan, Fred, Susan, Brad, thank you all.